Hello and welcome to the Intermittent Fasting Masterclass for Women. I'm Julia Glanz. I'm a registered dietitian with a master's degree in nutritional science and a certified strength and conditioning specialist.
And I'm Lauren Papanos. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist with a master's degree in nutritional sciences and a certified specialist in sports dietetics.
We've both spent the last decade studying nutrition and exercise science and have been practicing intermittent fasting for the last few years. We are so excited that you're here and we can't wait to share this information with you because it's literally everything we wish we would have known when we got started intermittent fasting.
Yeah, there's a few things that we both consistently agree on that we hear as practitioners working with women. The first one is, how can I speed up my metabolism? How can I reduce my food cravings? I feel like my hormones are out of whack. I can't seem to get rid of my belly fat. And the last one, that can I work out while fasted?
Yeah, so if you nodded your head yes to any of these questions, then you're definitely in the right place. And we're so excited that you're here because what we're about to share with you just might be the exact tools you need to heal your body naturally so that you can have balanced hormones, more energy, and just better results from your workout. So you'll definitely want to grab a pen and paper so you can jot down any notes with things that come up for you and the practical action steps that we share. And yeah, let's just dive right in. But before we do so, let's talk about what we're going to learn and cover over this course of the class. So number one, we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting tips to balance your hormones. Number two, we're going to be talking about foods to eat to break your fast and then which foods to avoid. And then we're also going to cover the 3 most common mistakes women make while intermittent fasting. And then last but not least, how to sync your exercise routine with intermittent fasting to maximize your results. And to be fully transparent, we have an amazing offer at the end of this masterclass. So be sure to stay around until the end so you can hear what we have for you. And also remember to head over to the live Q&A right after this class, and you can find the link in the description below. Just click the link there and it'll take you right to the Q&A.
Now, before we dive in, let's explain what intermittent fasting is. So there's a few different styles of intermittent fasting that you're probably familiar with. The most familiar type of them all is the 16-8 method. What this means is that you essentially fast for 16 hours and then you eat during those other 8 hours of the day. However, there's a lot of other types of fasting as well. There's the 12-hour fast approach, 24-hour fast, 20-hour fast, and even 3 to 7 day water fasts only. So we're going to discuss why we don't recommend the latter a little bit more later, but it's important that you understand that intermittent fasting is not a diet. It's not calorie restriction, and it does not take into account what you eat or how much you eat. The purpose of it is to prioritize maximizing the benefits of being in a fasted state.
Yes, and one of the main reasons we believe intermittent fasting to be such a sustainable approach to health is because you spend the majority of your fasting window asleep. Like, it doesn't get much easier than that in terms of sustainability. And now I want to talk about kind of what happens while you're in a fasted state. And one of the main things is your cells start to initiate important cellular repair processes called autophagy. And it's incredible what your body naturally does while you're in a fasted state to detoxify and just repair itself. And it does this if you just give it the time to let it do its thing. And cellular repair of fasting is a whole class in itself. For now, we're just going to go over how intermittent fasting pertains to our hormones. So intermittent fasting enhances our hormones to facilitate weight loss, which is one of the main reasons a lot of people start looking into it in the first place. Now, while it can definitely support weight loss goals, there's a couple caveats to this. If women don't do intermittent fasting properly for their own individual body, those amazing benefits for weight loss and hormone balance actually could backfire. So let me give you a little bit of context about how our hormones work when you're in a fasted state. When you're in a fasted state, there's obviously no food or caloric beverages coming in. So your body can't utilize and break down those nutrients for energy. So what your body does instead is just relies on stored fuel to use for energy. An example of this is when you're asleep. So you're asleep, you're in a fasted state, your body starts to use stored glucose for energy. This stored glucose is called glycogen, and it's stored in your liver and in your muscle. So liver glycogen gets depleted during an overnight fast, and the extent of which it actually gets depleted just kind of depends on the composition and timing of your last meal. So let's say you ate a personal pizza for dinner the night before. You're probably gonna have a little bit more stored glycogen in the morning, as opposed to if you ate a salmon salad for dinner the night before. Now, when you wake up, liver glycogen is low. And once it's low enough, after about 12 hours or so, you start to get those benefits of tapping into your fat stores for energy. So now let's talk about the 4 other hormones that also make this fat burning process happen. So back to the overnight fast. After an overnight fast, insulin is low. Insulin is your storage hormone, and when that is low, your body isn't in storage mode and can actually tap into its fat stores and start to mobilize fat for fuel. That is one of the greatest benefits of having a long fasted window, is that your body can start to mobilize fatty acids from those fat cells to use for energy. Another hormone that supports this process is growth hormone. And after about 12 hours or so of fasting, growth hormone starts to increase. Growth hormone has 2 main jobs while your body's in a fasted state. 1, preserve lean mass, so preserve your muscle mass, and 2, facilitate fat burning. The next 2 hormones I'm going to talk about are your stress hormones, norepinephrine and cortisol. Since fasting is a mild stress on your body, your stress hormones start to increase. Now, norepinephrine will start to raise your heart rate and also increase your metabolism and the breakdown of fat. So it starts to facilitate its use of fatty acids for energy. Cortisol will also support this fat burning process as well. But this only happens when your body's in a fasted state. The thing with cortisol is that when it's consistently elevated in times when you're highly stressed, it can actually have detrimental effects on your weight goals and your health goals. So now that we've talked about how fasting can enhance hormone function to speed up your metabolism and facilitate fat burning, let's talk about the 3 most common mistakes that women make while intermittent fasting. So mistake number 1, not eating enough calories or micronutrients during their eating window. 2, doing HIIT workouts in the morning too often. And number 3, not balancing other life stressors. So, Lauren, how does fasting impact stress hormones, and how do we influence this?
Yeah, so just like you mentioned, fasting primarily increases that cortisol and norepinephrine, but we'll reference cortisol more just for simplicity's sake. Your body's response to this fasting is very similar to what your body's response is when you're in a caloric deficit or if you were on a diet. Both things might be okay in the short term, but if done for too long with not enough rest looped in there, that's where we start to see problems occur. The main problem that we see here in women are because the female body has a higher metabolic need due to the menstrual cycle. So this is especially true in the ovulatory phase, which is around day 15 or 16 of your menstrual cycle. And this is where your body really needs all the energy that it can get to complete ovulation. Women actually have a higher fat burning rate during ovulation and in the next following days leading up to the menstrual cycle after ovulation occurs. The increase in this energy demand requires more nutrients, and if those aren't present through the diet, then this is when it can result in things like PMS, late periods, and even infertility if done for too long. Not only that, though, women are also more susceptible to the feeling of being hangry in between meals, or, typically that's going to occur when they go too long in between meal periods. Well, this goes back to our physiology, really, because if you think about hunters and gatherers, men would sometimes have to fast for many hours or days on end, while women typically had more food availability at their sake. So managing stress hormones within the menstrual cycle can be really complicated, but don't worry, because we're going to spell out everything for how to do this in our special offer that we'll mention at the end of this masterclass. Situations that we really don't recommend doing this intermittent fasting is when, like you said, Julia, calories are too low, when you're doing these high intensity HIIT workouts daily and you're in a fasted state or in a caloric deficit, right? When you're under other life stressors, or if you're in a difficult training phase, if you're a competitive athlete. And remember that these life stressors can be mental, psychological, emotional. There's a million different things that can contribute to these life stressors. And the last thing is when you're in the high hormone or this ovulatory phase around day 15 of the menstrual cycle. These things alone can increase cortisol. So when we fast while in these situations, this puts too much stress on our body and can result in adrenal problems. These adrenal problems are related to things like weight gain, which we'll talk about later. It's really a fine balance between all these stressors to get the most from your nutrition and exercise.
Yes, there is definitely a fine balance, which is why we're so passionate about this topic. So let's dive into how to schedule your fasted workouts, how often you should do them, and then some potential things to keep in mind. First, I want to go over the three main benefits of working out in a fasted state. Number one, when you do HIIT or cardio in a fasted state, you increase your metabolic flexibility, which is your body's ability to tap into its fat stores and utilize them for energy. And the more efficient you get at tapping into your fat stores, the less you rely on using sugar for energy. So if you are someone who always has to have that afternoon sweep, this is definitely going to be helpful for you to reduce those cravings. One thing to note is that if you do have performance goals, working out in a fasted state might decrease your intensity output, which could possibly hinder your results. So just make sure to keep that in mind if you do have those performance goals. So benefit number two of including fasted workouts is that you further deplete your glycogen stores. Remember how I talked about at the beginning, you store glycogen in your liver and in your muscle? Well, after an overnight fast, it only depletes that glycogen in the liver. So by working out in a fasted state, you further deplete those glycogen stores in your muscle. And what happens when glycogen is low enough at the end of your workout, your body might start to produce more ketone bodies. And this in itself has been shown to have positive effects on brain health. So that's amazing, right? All you have to do is work out in a fasted state and you're getting these ketone body productions that has positive effects on brain health. The last thing, and arguably most important benefit you get from working out in a fasted state, is what's called mitochondrial biogenesis. When you do low intensity cardio while fasted, you increase the size of your mitochondria, which is called mitochondria biogenesis. And why the mitochondria is so important is because it's literally the powerhouse of your cell. And the bigger it gets, the more energy it's able to generate. And this could also help speed up your metabolism over the long term. So now that we know the benefits, let's talk more about where you could potentially go wrong with this. Lauren, how can women optimize intermittent fasting around their workout schedule to do it in the safest way possible?
Yeah, so similarly, like we talked about earlier, one of the major problems with intermittent fasting in women is doing these high intensity HIIT workouts daily while in a fasted state. What happens when you do this is it drives up those stress hormones, that norepinephrine and that cortisol, which can lead to adrenal problems like weight gain, fatigue, difficulty sleeping, and also hormonal imbalances if done for too long. Notice that I said there daily, because there is some benefit to doing these high intensity workouts fasted due to the metabolic and hormonal increases that you'll get from growth hormone. Growth hormone can lead to increased muscle mass, can help increase recovery, and it's also going to expedite your metabolism. But instead, save the majority of your fasting for these lower intensity aerobic workout days, and then sprinkle it in sparingly to your high intensity workouts. An example of these lower intensity aerobic workouts might be a 45-minute cycling workout or jog at a conversational pace. Doing these workouts fasted can be very beneficial for increasing the size of your mitochondria, that mitochondrial biogenesis like you mentioned earlier. And like you said, the mitochondria are the powerhouse of your cells that provide energy to your entire body, and healthy mitochondria also help with prevention of disease. So for example, over the course of 1 week, you might work out 5 or 6 times, and one of these workouts might be a HIIT workout that you do following a 12-hour fast to be able to really optimize that growth hormone. Then you might do 2 other workouts during the week in a fed state that are high intensity HIIT workouts. And then you might also do 1 or 2 45-minute conversational pace jogs or cycling workouts after a 16-hour fast. It would be best to mix these workouts in over the course of the week and follow 1 HIIT workout by a 45-minute jog and continue that same rhythm throughout the rest of the week. Okay, so now that we know how to fully optimize fasting around our workouts, Julia, once we work out, what foods should we eat to be able to break this fast and get the most from it?
Yeah, so let's definitely talk about what foods to eat, how to get the most out of your fast, how long to fast for, and then also a common question we get, do you need to eat right after your workout? Within the context of this class, the length of your fast can be anywhere from 12 to 16 hours. We recommend beginners start with 12 hours and then see how your body feels with that. Then slowly start to work your way up to a 16-hour fast, which, as Lauren mentioned, we don't recommend doing daily. So we recommend sprinkling those longer fasts in and then pairing that with your lower intensity workouts. So for example, your weekly schedule should really alternate between high intensity and low intensity, and making sure that you're keeping those shorter fasts for the days that you do your HIIT workouts. Just to reiterate this, because we really think it's super important, we do not recommend doing 16-hour fasts daily for women. Now is a great time to mention that special offer we have for you. We have created a complete intermittent fasting guide that has a step-by-step plan of how to structure your workouts with fasting so you can maximize results and optimize your hormones. And there's a lot more included in this guide, which we'll talk about later. For now, let's dive back into what you should eat when you break your fast.
Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, Julia, it's a common misconception that you need to eat immediately after you finish that workout after you're fasting. But really, you don't need to eat immediately following that workout, but we do recommend trying to get in some type of meal within 2 hours after you finish that workout in a fasted state. Remember that during this time, your body's going to be very receptive to the foods that you eat when breaking your fast. So it's important that whatever you do eat during that time is very nutrient dense. We recommend that you get a lean source of protein such as chicken or turkey or even tempeh, along with a carbohydrate source like potatoes or berries. The foods that you want to avoid when breaking your fast include anything processed, anything that's high in sugar, or anything that's really high in fat. You also want to avoid combining those refined carbohydrate sources with high fat together. An example of this combination would be something like a pastry or a bagel that has cream cheese on it. Another thing that you want to avoid, and I know that I've definitely made this mistake before, is having cruciferous vegetables to break this fast. They contain a complex sugar called raffinose, and that's really hard for your body to digest. So consuming them when you break a fast might cause some GI distress and bloating. Let me define what foods do and do not break your fast, because I know that these are questions that you and I get all the time. So the first one is, many of you may be familiar with branched chain amino acids or BCAAs. Can you use these during a workout that's in a fasted state? We recommend not using them to be able to get the most benefits while working out in a fasted state. And the reason for this is because while consuming these branched chain amino acids, they're going to increase the amount of digestive enzymes required, and they're going to stop the benefits of that autophagy process that Julia talked about earlier, which is due to the amino acids that are present in the branched chain amino acid products. We do, however, recommend black coffee though, and we just want to make sure that you know that it needs to be black and it needs to be unsweet. The black coffee in itself can actually support additional autophagy processes. Whereas something like bulletproof coffee, where it contains butter and medium chain triglycerides and maybe even collagen peptides, those are going to be a no-go during this process. If, however, the bulletproof coffee only contains 100% medium chain triglycerides, then that would be something you could consume, because it's not going to require those digestive enzymes. It's going to be immediately absorbed through that portal vein for entry. Tea is also something that you can consume during this time, very similar to your black coffee. You just want to make sure that it's, unsweet, doesn't have any added sugars. And then the last one, probably the most popular question we get, is what about gum, whether it's sugar or sugar-free. If it's sugar-free gum, it still does contain sugar alcohols, which means that there is going to be some sugars partially absorbed. So we don't recommend consuming this during your fasting window.
Yes. So just to err on the safe side, include water, black tea, black coffee. Stay away from everything else just to be safe and to get the most out of your fasting window. And the last thing we want to leave you guys with is what foods to include during your eating window and what foods to include to optimize your hormones. So a hormone balancing diet typically takes into account keeping blood sugar stable and insulin from spiking. And in order to do this, you must have a diet rich in fiber, healthy fats, and protein. Now, there's two other foods we recommend including as women, and one might be a little bit surprising. And let's start with the surprising one, seaweed. So eating seaweed is super beneficial for your thyroid hormones. And this is because seaweed is rich in iodine. And the reason you want to include iodine in your diet, especially if you intermittent fast, is because iodine is needed to make thyroid hormone. And your thyroid hormones are responsible for all things metabolism. So in order to keep that metabolism up and running, you want to include these iodine-rich sources of food like seaweed. And the second food is, if you know me, you probably know what I'm going to say, cruciferous vegetables. While we don't recommend cruciferous vegetables for breaking your diet, like Lauren mentioned, I've definitely made that mistake before. Just causes some GI distress and a lot of bloating. So don't consume cruciferous veggies to break your fast. Do, however, consume them later on in the day, like for lunch or dinner. And the reason we recommend incorporating cruciferous vegetables is to help support balancing your hormones. Cruciferous veggies have a compound in them that actually helps your body metabolize excess estrogen down the preferred pathway. And this helps decrease estrogen-related issues like weight gain, acne, PMS, and it also has been shown to reduce the risk for estrogen-related cancers. And now for the amazing offer we mentioned at the beginning of our masterclass.
We truly believe that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach to this. As women, we really need to be cautious of our own bio-individuality, meaning that what works for someone else doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. And that's why we created this ebook. We have both been down our own journeys with intermittent fasting for years, and the research that we've had access to has provided us with the right protocols and showed promising results. However, after all these studies we've looked at the effects of intermittent fasting, they were all done on men. And after continuing our own experimentation and research, we dove deeper into women's health and hormones, especially as they relate to intermittent fasting. We realized that as women, you aren't maximizing the benefits from intermittent fasting unless you're looking at this big picture. And while there's plenty of information out there on the benefits of intermittent fasting for women, we haven't found an all-in-one resource that provides information on syncing your menstrual cycle, exercise routine, and diet with intermittent fasting. That's why we wanted to provide this for you. And it's really the big picture information that I think you and I both wish we had whenever we first started intermittent fasting. So we wanted to provide a simple and very practical structure that had all the resources that you need to be your own health advocate so that you can truly find what works best for you. The purpose of this ebook is to help you optimize your hormones, maximize your results, and reach your health goals in a way that is effortless and sustainable to your lifestyle.
Yes, I'm just getting so excited even hearing you talk about this, because this is actually everything we wish we would have had when we first got started intermittent fasting. We are not men. We need special individualized protocols that support our female hormones. And in this ebook, you get everything and more of how to make it super practical to fit into your lifestyle. So let me just talk about a couple things that you'll get in this ebook. You'll get a step-by-step plan of how to structure your week of workouts with fasting to maximize your results. And this is whether you strength train, do HIIT, run distance, or even do yoga. We cover all of it. We also cover the exact nutrients and supplements we recommend to consume during your fast and when you break your fast. The last thing is a 2-week sample meal plan with recipes and a grocery list, which you can follow. That wasn't the last thing. I lied. We have a bonus in there included as well. And this is a nutrition guide for those of you who want to take your athletic performance to the next level. And the best part about this is for the next 24 hours, we're offering this ebook for only $30. So be sure to click the link in the description below to get it while it's this ridiculously cheap. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this masterclass. We hope you learned a lot. And if you did, reach out to us on Instagram. Let us know if you found this helpful and what your biggest takeaway was. Now head over to the live Q&A. You can click the link in the description below and it will take you right there. We'll see you soon.